Welcome to Pario Magazine, where I chat with individuals who have a desire to create. Today, I'm joined by the creator behind a brand new apparel manufacturer that infuses wrestling with football culture. Welcome to Pario Magazine, Alan Smith.
Hi, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So we're here today to chat about your journey building blacksmith apparel. Before we dive into that story, though, do you want to give our audience a brief introduction as to who Alan is away from clothing design and manufacture?
I'm Alan Smith. I'm from West London. I'm 23 years old. And my background was sort of in marketing, digital marketing. I studied journalism at the University of Sheffield. And then a couple of years ago, I sort of ventured into the world of wrestling and clothing and started Blacksmith, which is, fusing primarily football shirts, but other sportswear as well, into the sort of the wrestling merchandise scene and working with, the top wrestlers in the world to bring some really high quality merch to a market that didn't really have that much premium merch out there.
Awesome. So when did you sort of first develop the passion for obviously wrestling, but also apparel?
So wrestling, I'd say mid 2000s. I grew up on a lot of TNA.
Mhm.
So that was my AJ Styles, sort of Kurt Angle, Joe Daniels was what really got me into wrestling, and then sort of it was mostly sticking with Impact and then independent wrestling, the odd WWE pay per view, but yeah, it was mostly TNA and Impact. And then being from England, being a West Ham fan and a big football fan, as many people here are, football jerseys, football shirts are obviously a big thing here. In the last sort of 4 to 5 years, they've become more of a collectible item. So the price of football shirts have gone up quite a lot, and you see a lot of people wearing them out. Like whereas before they'd just be something that you'd wear to a football game. So yeah, I just had the idea of sort of using the two things after seeing football shirts become more of a fashionable item, and you don't necessarily need to be a football fan to wear a football shirt anymore. Likewise with things like baseball jerseys and basketball. So that idea sort of came together in sort of mid 2021, and that's when I sort of put together the first sort of concept for a blacksmith.
Okay. And before launching Blacksmith, did you sort of have a history in like design and apparel manufacture?
No, I had nothing, no graphic design, no clothing design, absolutely nothing.
Okay. And then so what sort of inspired you to actually, I'm going to jump in and go down this path? Because obviously it's totally outside your normal.
Yeah. To be honest, it was making something that I wanted. Like I wasn't interested in making money or making filling it up. And I was just thinking, I've got a design here which I've done in my free time. Um, I want to make it. Like I didn't have any intention of it sort of blowing up, but I was just thinking, maybe I can make a few of these because they're really cool and it's something that I would wear. And I know a lot of people that I know would definitely wear that as well. So yeah, that's just sort of where it started, and it grew when people began to take notice.
Okay. And then how did you then start to go down that path? Was there a long sort of extensive research process in who do I get to make these shirts? Where do I get them designed and whatever?
Um, yes and no. I think I was quite lucky in the fact that I tried to initially do everything in the UK. And that was sort of, especially 2021, it was a period where that was nearly like impossible, especially when you sort of don't have the resources to do that. So I sort of just tried to, something that was really important when I realized that these are something that I was going to build a brand on is just really high quality merchandise. So there was a lot of sort of bringing samples in, testing qualities, working to sort of design my own jacquards, like my own fabrics to make sure that they were sort of unique to whatever else was on the market. So yeah, it took a while to sort of get those things in place before we could sell anything, and make sure that like we had the right sort of materials that would work as both like a piece of sportswear, but also a piece of merchandise.
Okay. And then who was the first wrestler that you then approached with this idea and was like pitching the idea of I want to make a football jersey based on your character?
In terms, I did the Brett design and I posted it on Instagram, and a wrestler called Mo Jabari got in touch, and he's based in Canada, and he's quite close with Bret Hart and the Hart family. And yeah, he got in touch. He said, I know Bret Hart. These really cool. Would you be interested in sending some over, like making some, sending some over? And so I made those. he wore them. People like sort of Tyson Kids, TJ Wilson started wearing them. And then I sort of got a bit of traction from people I was following. So that was mainly Impact stars. So that was in terms of like independent Impact stars, like Chris Bay, Trey Miguel, and Josh Alexander was sort of the first few that got in touch in regards to saying, you know, these are really cool. Could we sort of do something similar? Could you do something like maybe other pieces of sportswear? So it just grew initially from that Bret Hart piece. And then we went on to the British Bulldog, and that was the first piece of sort of officially licensed merchandise that I did. And that was a big learning curve, like learning royalties, merchandise, like licensing. That's a massive thing in wrestling, and that was so I'd say that was equally as hard as learning everything in terms of design and manufacturing. Sort of what the right royalty percentage was, how, you know, like in terms of invoice and stuff like that. Like they sound quite small, but they're quite big when you sort of talk about the world of wrestling merch.
Yep. Yeah. 5 or 10% here and there doesn't seem like a lot, but after you start selling a few, it quickly racks up to a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then sort of since launching with those two big names, you've got partnerships with a bunch of other wrestlers, people like we mentioned the British Bulldog, Mark Andrews, the current Impact Wrestling World Champion, Steve Macklin, Speedball Mike Bailey, Josh Alexander, and then the prodigy, Billy Starks. How did those partnerships come about? Was it just word of mouth between the wrestlers?
Yeah. So I did it sort of when we first started. I think Trey and Chris Bay, either I got in touch or they got in touch with me about just making like a one-off piece. So I made both of them one-off piece. And then sort of coming into 2022, I wanted to move on to sort of more into the current wrestler scene rather than just legends. And because we were sort of beginning to be known around sort of Impact, Josh Alexander got in touch. He said, you know, I love your stuff. Would you be able to make me a rash guard for my entrances? So we did that, and then I sort of was already drafting an idea of having blacksmith athletes. So these are people who sort of embody what we're about in terms of like a sporting presence, like people like Josh Macklin. Like a lot of these people, Speedball, are very sort of based on pure sports and sort of that they implement that in their character and their moveset. So I wanted to sort of showcase those people and have them on board as sort of ambassadors. So yeah, we did sort of towards it was August or September 22, and we sort of did a jersey for Josh and then one for Speedball. And yeah, they got a lot of traction. So we sort of just started approaching more wrestlers. And as the months went by, I sort of tried to focus on sort of up and coming wrestlers, the sort of best in the world. So you've got Billy Starks, man like Darius, Leon Slater, who are sort of, you know, destined to be some of the greatest in the world. And I just wanted to have that sort of partnership with them, as well as sort of getting them on the ladder of merch and already having them have some really good quality merchandise, which they can sort of be proud of themselves and be happy to wear themselves.
As a Impact fan from sort of early age, was that special for you to have those Impact stars reaching out to you?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd say especially with Josh. I mean, like he was just coming off his sort of record-breaking reign with the North, and he was quickly becoming one of my favorite, if not my favorite, in Impact at the time. So yeah, it was definitely really special to sort of forge those relationships. And in a brand, I'd say Impact's quite a close knit family as well. So you know the roster's really close, the fan base is really close to each other. So it's really cool because once you're on side with like one of the wrestlers, essentially I had the whole fan base on side. And as a fan of Impact, you know, I knew a lot of these names already. A lot of these people were going to shows. So it's really cool to have those sort of acknowledge Blacksmith as a small part of Impact, with, you know, the logo being shown whenever Josh would walk up to the ring or someone would wear the merch.
Yep. And then more recently, you formed a partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling for Bullet Club and United Empire jerseys. How special and exciting was that for you?
Yeah, very. That I guess that's our first venture into partnering with a major company, and that was something I feel like for a few months we've had the capability to do that, to partner with a major company, and it was just seeing sort of which one would match the style of blacksmith. And like I mentioned before, we're very sports based, and when you talk about sort of something that's authentic to sports, New Japan is sort of the number one when it comes to being authentic to real life sports, and with their sort of aesthetic and sort of a big placement on they do their tracksuits every year and stuff like that. I think it was like a no-brainer to get in touch. So they got back to me, and yeah, that was really exciting because sort of I saw the gap in the market there, and sort of to grow blacksmith, but also to have the New Japan merch sort of stateside and in the UK where it's not as accessible was something that was also really big and a massive part of like why I wanted to do the collaboration as well.
And yeah, I guess with their sort of factions, sort of a team aspect as well, so that the team jerseys does fit in and make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was sort of one of the first points that came up about doing the sort of faction jerseys, and whether that's sort of the older factions or the up and coming factions. So yeah, so that's something that we'll be doing for sort of our first launch, looking into all the sort of factions in New Japan, creating jerseys based on their sort of history and the ties.
And based on the little teaser we got of the United Empire jersey, I'm very excited for that one. It looks incredible.
Yeah, I think personally that's my favorite we've ever done. I showed a preview to Will Ospreay, and he was really excited. And you know, if he likes it, then I'm sure everyone else will like it. But yeah, it's definitely something that, because it's I think something that's, it's one of those pieces I think that really looks like, even if you're not a football fan, even if you don't have an interest in sports, sort of one of our first pieces that looks like a really strong item in terms of just wearing something outside without it looking too much like wrestling merch. And that's just a big thing about, like, you don't want to, you know, say this is wrestling merch on every single thing that you wear. And that's just a big thing of ours, like something that you can just like wear outside anytime, not just at a wrestling show.
Yep, that's one of the key things when I buy my own wrestling merch. It has to be something that's kind of fashionable and looks like it could just be like a band shirt or something like that, not
Yeah,
necessarily
exactly. Yeah,
screaming, this is a wrestling shirt.
yeah, spot on. Yeah.
And have you been surprised by the amount of support you've received from sort of the wrestling fans and the wrestling community as a whole?
Yeah, like I'd say I knew that Blacksmith had the potential to grow organically. It's not something that I wanted to sort of, like, from a marketing side. I don't do any paid advertisement. I don't do, and I guess you could say I do influence collaborations, but that's just wrestlers, you know, approaching me saying this stuff's really cool. Can I have this? Or me approaching the wrestlers and then people wanting to wear it, rather than, you know, me paying wrestlers to wear it. So I think once you see wrestlers wearing your stuff, the fans, you know, will automatically sort of want that piece of merchandise or realize, you know, it's quite a cool piece of merch if that my favorite wrestler's wearing it. So yeah, it's been like steady growth, but then in places, especially like when the New Japan deal was launched, we've also had like a massive boost of followers. So yeah, it's been like a bit of both.
Okay. And looking ahead, being based in London, we've got a major show coming up there later in the year. Is that something that you would love to sort of partner on as well?
I would love to. Yeah, that would be amazing. So where I'm based in West London is very close to Wembley Stadium, and I don't know if there's anything official. There's nothing in the works at the moment, but that would be something I'd love to do with AEW, if they would like to collaborate. And I know it's something that would definitely sell very well. You know, for essentially everyone going as a piece of sort of memorabilia. And I think especially when you talk about international tours, there's a sort of a tendency to just slap on, especially when you talk about like UK tours, just like Union Jack
Yep.
onto like a logo. And that's like loads of people have already sent me messages going, if you do something, please don't do like massive Union Jack. And it's not something I intended on doing. Like, when we do designs, it's a lot more subtle, with sort of nods to things like that. So yeah, that would be something that I'd definitely love to do if we can organize something with AW.
Yeah, I've noticed that with tours of Australia as well. They just chuck on the
Yeah,
Australian flag or a kangaroo or something. It's like, oh,
yeah,
geez.
stereotypical.
Yep. And then looking ahead, aside from sort of a company partnership, is there a dream collaboration with a wrestler that you would love to get?
There's a few. I think when you talk about legends, I think Rob Van Dam, just because aesthetically his style and ring, but also his sort of attires, his ring gear is something that I think would fit really well on a piece of sort of sportswear. And I think that's like, we always trying to incorporate the actual gear. So what we've done with people like Mike Bailey, Bret Hart, is incorporate sort of gears that they've worn on big pay-per-views, and try and incorporate the little details of those gears and replicate that onto the jerseys. So Rob Van Dam definitely. In terms of current stars, I'd really like to do, maybe in WWE. I think Imperium really suit the mold. They already wear their tracksuits to the ring. They're very sports based. So Imperium and maybe the Street Profits as well would be some, like, again, they wear their tracksuits to the ring, and they're very, like, they do the jerseys already. They do like the American football and the basketball. So I think they're two sort of teams that would fit really well and would like really be able to donate themselves in terms of like providing their ideas to a jersey.
Is that a big part, sort of getting that collaborative aspect? It's not just, hey, sign up, I'll
Yeah,
design everything, and then you just tick it off. It's like, I actually want your feedback in
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, the more a wrestler can sort of provide feedback, give me ideas, like any little details that they want, the better, because I'm designing something that represents them. And it's not like, oh, we'll pay this to license it and then we'll like make something and you can sign off on it. We want the wrestlers there every step of the way to sort of say, you know, well, I like this, I don't like this, can you do this? And we're happy to accommodate that, to make that something that they're sort of proud of and like as if they've designed that as well. So like, I like to think of it as an extension of like sort of their ring gear, like that's something that's, you know, part of their gimmick, part of their personality. So I like the merch to sort of be an accurate representation of them as well.
Yep. Yeah. Something that we can see, like we've seen with Mike Bailey and Macklin, sort of wearing in their backstage promos or in their entrances. It makes sense that it fits in their
Yeah,
character.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So finally, where is the best place for people to support you and track the creative journey moving forward?
On social media, you can follow us at Blacksmith Apparel. That's BLCKSMTH Apparel, no vowels. And our website is blcksmth.co.uk, blacksmith.co.uk.
Alrighty, perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck with everything, and enjoy the Wembley show. I'm very jealous.
Thank you for having me. I'll try and get there if I can, if the tickets don't sell out.